Hello, everyone, and welcome to this parallel session named Building Back Better Through Virtual Opportunities and Innovative Partnership with Canada. My name is Priscilla López, Academic Affairs Officer at the Embassy of Canada in Chile, and I'm very happy to be present today moderating this session. COVID-19 pandemic has presented many challenges to the international education sector in Canada. Due to the unavailability of many education institutions to deliver classes online, most international students had to either cancel or delay their plans to study in Canada. This has also had an impact on the ability of Canadian institutions to establish new partnerships. In this session, trade commissioners from the Mexican market will present how they've been successful in helping Canadian institutions and how they've been able to identify new business opportunities in the Mexican market despite these challenges. We'd love to hear from you. So after the presentation, we'll read the questions that you leave in the chat section. I'd like to introduce today's presenters. Karen Serdán from Monterrey, covering the Northeast area, Nuevo León, Tamaulipas, Coahuila, Chihuahua. Karen has a degree in international business from the EBC Banking and Commercial School in Mexico City. She has worked for the Canadian government for 12 years at the Canadian Embassy in Mexico City at the Immigration Department, for 5 years at the Canadian Consulate in Monterrey, and most recently as Trade Commissioner to the Education Sector and Cultural Industries. Welcome, Karen. Verónica Soto from Guadalajara, covering West and Bajío area, Jalisco, Aguascalientes, Guanajuato, Sinaloa, Colima, Nayarit. Verónica has over a decade of experience in the international education sector, with deep understanding of the Mexican education market and a strong focus in facilitating relationships between Canadian and Mexican education institutions. She holds a bachelor's degree on international relations and a master in international development. Welcome, Vero. Laura Garza from Mexico, covering National Federal Northwest, Central, and South Mexico. Laura is a Trade Commissioner and Academic Affairs Officer at the Public Affairs section of the Embassy of Canada in Mexico. Before joining Global Affairs Canada, Laura worked for the U.S. State Department and for the U.S. Consulate General in Monterrey as Education and Cultural Affairs Specialist. Previously, she served as Public Diplomacy Assistant at the U.S. Consulate in Matamoros and was head of the Scholarship and Cultural Office in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Delegation in Nuevo León. Laura holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from the Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León. Colin Dorr, Director of External Relations at the British Columbia Council for International Education. Colin has worked in international education programming for over 12 years, managing both university as well as community-based international education initiatives. He has worked to advance international mobility programs at Simon Fraser University, and most recently contributed to the support of community-based international development education programs through his tenure at Canada World Youth. Colin has also been one of BCCI's earliest recipients of the Asia Pacific Award that enabled him to pursue language and cultural studies in Beijing, China. He is now completing his doctorate in educational leadership and policy at the University of British Columbia. Welcome to our speakers, and now with further ado, I give you our speakers today. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Priscilla, for your kind introduction. Hello, everyone. I am delighted to be part of this session at CAIE conference and to be able to share with you about the work done by the Trade Commissioner Service in Mexico. Since the COVID-19 pandemic started in March 2020, the Mexico education team has been very dynamic and creative in adapting to the new reality by participating and launching a series of virtual events to keep advancing and promoting Canada's interest in the education sector, interest of Mexicans towards studying in Canada, and the willingness of academic institutions in Canada and Mexico to continue international cooperation definitely overcome the pandemic impact on international education. We here, the education team in Mexico, realized that moving to an online virtual international collaboration would be key for Canadian education to continue to be visible and to engage with the Mexican institutions. My colleagues and I had to develop virtual opportunities and innovative partnerships that demonstrate that Canada offers a unique set of expertise and is eager to build cooperative relationships. We also have worked tirelessly not to only understand the new needs in the sector, but also to serve our Canadian clients and to facilitate opportunities. We also constantly participated in market-oriented virtual presentations to talk about the trends, the developments, and opportunities in Mexico. When the pandemic started, we wanted also to continue connecting with our local contacts and not to lose the great relationships that we have built over the years with all of them. So we also had to adapt, and we had to continuously schedule meetings with them virtually to learn about their needs, their priorities, their plans. So it allowed us to create new strategies to find new virtual methods to continue supporting Canadian institutions in their strategies to export educational services abroad and to support Mexican partners. As part of these efforts, I would like to share today with you a success story between Royal Roads University and the Autonomous University of Ciudad Juárez, UACJ, as per its acronym in Spanish. UACJ is a public university located in the northeast of Mexico. And next slide, please. Next, please. Next slide, please. Perfect. So during a virtual outcall made with the Autonomous University of Ciudad Juárez, the TCS identified the need in having teachers trained for giving online classes. They were used to give only in-person classes, and from one day to another, they had to start giving only online classes. So for a lot of them, it was the first time they used Zoom or Google Classroom, for example, and they had a strong need to learn not only how to use virtual platforms as Zoom, but also to learn how to develop teaching skills for online learning and develop effective online courses and learning experiences for their students. On the other hand, Royal Roads University contacted us, the Trade Commissioner Service in Mexico, and requested support for promoting their online teacher training courses. All these courses were addressed to core faculty, to associate faculty and staff of Latin American educational institutions, and were focused on developing teaching skills for online learning. So Royal Roads offered these courses at a reduced price, which generated interest among the Mexican institutions. As we all know, one of the challenges in Mexico for this type of trainings is the language in which these courses are delivered. Usually Canadian institutions deliver these courses only in English and or French, and usually Mexican institutions require this training in Spanish, unless this is a bilingual institution with bilingual teachers. In this specific case, the UACJ is not a bilingual institution, but due to it is located in the border region with the United States, and due to the cultural dynamic the people of Ciudad Juárez have with our neighbor country, most of the teachers at the university speak English fluently. So the TCS connected Royal Roads University with UACJ on June 2020. With support and follow-up from the TCS, this Mexican university planned to train certain number of professors so that they could become local trainers at the university, and they could share best practices and knowledge with other colleagues. In October of the same year, UACJ selected 7 professors to do this first training called Facilitating Learning Online Fundamental course. It was a 5-week online course that the professors took from October to November of the last year. And as I said before, it was focused on developing teaching skills for asynchronous online learning. And it included also strategies to create active learning environment for their students online. So also facilitate and co-facilitated a pre-designed learning activity for the teacher. After a follow-up made with local contact by TCS and Royal Roads, and also thank you to the great experience and feedback get from UACJ professors, Royal Roads opened a special cohort for UACJ for a second course for the teachers and offered them an important discount. This second course was delivered to 8 professors on June of this year, 2021. This new course complemented the first course, and it was focused on the designing of online courses. So for this second course, Royal Roads was able to use both English and Spanish for instruction. And currently, both institutions are in conversations for delivering a third course to a greater number of USCJ teachers. Next slide, please. Great. I would like to take a couple of minutes more of my presentation and highlight what made this story as a success. I think I have a delay in my computer. If you please can return back to the other slide. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to take a couple of minutes just to share with you what made this story a success. First of all, the TCS capacity to adapt and learn from the crisis, and also the communication and teamwork carried out among the 3 offices in Monterrey, Mexico City, and Guadalajara since the beginning of the pandemic. The communication between TCS and the Canadian institution was also very important. We as trade commissioners are here to help you succeed in Mexico. Please use the services we can provide you. Inform us about your plans, the programs that you would like to offer in Mexico. Tell us about your international strategies. In this way, we can support those strategies and find potential opportunities for you. The understanding of the Mexican market and the Mexican culture was crucial. In this case, Royal Roads took the time to have not only one, but several calls with USCJ for understanding their needs. They sent several emails and followed up with them for 4 months with support of the TCS. For the second course, the TCS and Royal Roads follow up with this Mexican university for almost 6 months. Per feedback received by local contacts, they feel supported by the Canadian institution and by the consulate. They felt that they were treated as friends. So in the past, before the pandemic, used to take time. Now the budget of public Mexico has been reduced, and budget authorizations take more time than expected. So on the other hand, in this specific story, Royal Roads also involved a Spanish-speaking colleague in this conversation with UAE. It allowed a better among both institutions. And finally, continuous thoughts, it's important for you to know that the market will be more price sensitive. It requires organizations to think about the price proposals when offering online. And finally, I would like to share with you all a testimonial video that the TCS developed in Mexico, taking in reference this success story between. You play the video, Tiffany?
La Universidad Royal Roads es una institución pública.
Esta universidad joven es reconocida como la universidad líder por su competencia y el uso de la tecnología para sacar provecho de la enseñanza a distancia.
Por tanto y demás, ofrecimos o diseñamos cursos de 1 a 6 semanas que podían rápidamente entrenar a los profesores en adquirir esas habilidades para la enseñanza en línea. Y fue todo un éxito.
Los directores nos postulan a los candidatos ideales y fue enfocado al desarrollo de habilidades de la enseñanza y el aprendizaje en línea, muy de acuerdo a lo que estamos viviendo y de manera sincrónica.
Los resultados han sido positivos. Los estudiantes han reaccionado de manera favorable, expresándose con mayor confianza.
Por supuesto que sí, y tomaría otro curso con una institución canadiense, porque la calidad del curso fue excelente, en conocimientos, en experiencias.
La organización del curso, la metodología, la forma en que la maestra responsable de la impartición de esta capacitación hizo el seguimiento grupal y el seguimiento individual fueron una muestra de la calidad de la institución.
Thank you, Karen, for sharing that with you. All of you, my name is Laura Garza, and I really want to talk about institutional partnership through research. So in times of crisis, international collaboration is very important. We believe that academic and knowledge diplomacy are key to safeguard current education partnerships and further our bilateral relations. I would like to share with you how we've worked to further partnerships through research collaboration in a virtual environment. The Embassy of Mexico has worked with Canadian and Mexican associations and local governments to facilitate meetings and virtual research working tables during the past 2 years, and thus continue to engage with our partners no matter the distance. Our first events were done with the Ministry of Higher Education and Innovation of the Government of Yucatan and Canadian Research associations like Caldo and Calareo. I think we have some of our colleagues joining right now. These thematic working tables facilitated online conversations between researchers of both countries. Facilitating relations between Mexican and Canadian researchers in a virtual environment was definitely a complicated task. Creating a virtual format that would allow these conversations to happen was complex. Nevertheless, we already have some individual one-on-one research projects of collaboration. Next slide, please. But I would like to share with you our latest event, which pursued the same objective, collaboration through research, but from an institutional focus. We identified interest from San Luis Potosí and our Saskatchewan Ministry of Higher Education to further collaboration among Canadian and Mexican associations. But how could we do this? We identified interests and objectives in common on research collaboration to facilitate institutional partnerships. So San Luis Potosí research councils could collaborate with the Saskatchewan Ministry of Advanced Education and Canadian institutions on various sectors that they both had in common, such as Indigenous education, health, agribusiness, and agri-food. But how could we connect? How we could get to know each other in a virtual format? For this, we hosted a 2-day virtual event in coordination with Saskatchewan's Ministry of Advanced Education and COPOSIT, which is San Luis Potosí Research Council. We developed a virtual landing page through a virtual platform for an event, and we tailored the platform to serve for this particular event. So we developed the virtual platform, as I mentioned, and the whole format of the event, which consisted in basically 2 events under the same umbrella. First, we did a virtual event for presentations of Canadian higher education institutions so they could promote their capabilities and foster bilateral institution collaboration in research, technological development, and innovation that they could present to higher education institutions in San Luis Potosí. These presentations provided an opportunity for them to learn on Canadian capabilities on these areas of bilateral interest. For this first event, we also invited government representatives, private sector representatives, as well as researchers and Mexican higher education institutions. So this first event gave an opportunity so they could learn about each other. So we also included some virtual booths with general information about each of the participating institutions, including Canadian and Mexican. As a follow-up, a week after that, we followed up with a B2B event between a selected group of participants and institution representatives from both Saskatchewan and COPOSIT. So the Trade Commissioner Service developed a pre-registration form, which we tailored for this event, and we did some internal research to suggest B2B meetings between clients and local contacts on areas of mutual interest, client capabilities, or programs. So we try to identify and help both Canadian and Mexican institutions to find the right partner according to their capabilities, programs that they had in common, etc. So this event facilitated the development of partnership agreement that they're right now about to sign between COPOSIT, which is San Luis Potosí Research Council, and the Saskatchewan Ministry of Advanced Education. We're also waiting for individual institutional partnerships that might come up after this event, thanks to this type of virtual engagement. So next slide, please.
Thank you, Laura. Let me open my camera now. As you can see, developing successful virtual education events is a tough work. It takes time and lots of commitment. I will now going to provide a last example of a virtual collaboration event developed in September 2020 between the British Columbia Council for International Education, the BCCIE, and the Jalisco Consortium for the Internationalization for Higher Education, with the assistance of the Consulate of Canada in Guadalajara. First, we identified a common interest for both BCCIE and Jalisco, the development of online international partnership. This was recently easy as we used an existing collaboration framework between Jalisco and the BCCIE, a memorandum of understanding signed in 2017, through which both organizations committed to the development of international teacher and student mobility, joint research, among others. We then set up a working group who met every 2 weeks, every week, or twice per week until the day of the event. We took responsibilities and started talking about the focus of the event and the expected outcomes we wanted to see: online academic collaboration, virtual mobility, and joint research between both regions. How we did it? We decided to do a 4 hours online B2B session using a virtual platform where participants will create their profile, request meetings, and meet in virtual rooms. We also limited the registration to higher education institution international offices and faculty members. This time, we left out our international marketing and recruitment officers, as this event was meant for academic collaboration, not to recruit or sell. We also wanted the government authorities to learn about our efforts. Thus, we organized a plenary session a week before the B2Bs, where both BC and Jalisco higher education authorities and key players participated to talk about the benefits of international academic collaboration. It took us at least 3 months since the first conversation until the event took place. Yes, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Next slide, please. Here are some results. One plenary session with over 130 attendees hosted by the Jalisco government. This event went live on Facebook and YouTube and offers simultaneous interpretation. 4 hours B2B session with 15 higher education institutions and 45 meetings. And now, a year later, we're seeing results of these B2Bs. For example, ITESO University, based in Guadalajara, reported the development of 2 COIL programs with KPU and 2 with Langara College, a summer mobility program with the University of Victoria, and they're still in conversation with Simon Fraser University to develop a collaboration program for Indigenous students. As you can see now, this is a very cost-effective way to develop international partnerships between institutions. Before I turn to our live testimonial, here are some recommendations for your next virtual event. First, identify common goals between partner institutions. Commit with time and human resources, as it may take up to 3 months to develop a successful virtual event. For your online B2B session, choose a provider that best fits your needs and budget. Communication and clarity is crucial throughout the whole process. And follow up with participants to find out about successful partnership. This could be done a month later and then 6 months later. Next slide, please. Lastly, I want to share with you the link where you can watch the video with the presentation done at the CONAHEC and PAPE conference from last year, during which the BCCIE, the Jalisco government, the Jalisco Consortium for Internationalization, and myself presented this collaborative model for the development of an online event. And now I will pass the mic to Mr. Colin Dorr, Director for External Relations at the BCCIE. Colin and his team have been fundamental in the development of Guadalajara's successful virtual events during the pandemic. Thank you, Colin, for accepting my invitation to share with us your life testimonial. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Vero. It's an honor to be invited here to share a little bit of a testimonial from my point of view and from the BC Council for International Education. So for many of us in the sector, the fact that international mobility came to a screeching halt meant that we had to quickly shift our activities to figure out how to advance our work when the context and the carpet under our feet was pulled and shifted. We used creativity, innovation, but more than that, many of us ended up, of course, reaching out to our existing colleagues and partners to see how we can work together and help each other continue through this time to remain vibrant and relevant. The work that our council accomplished over the past year and a half with the Trade Commissioner Service, in particular, starting with Vero and her team in Guadalajara, and more recently expanding to the north and central Mexico, was really predicated on existing partnerships that were established before the pandemic. Interestingly, it feels as if we have never been more in step. This period over the pandemic has really sharpened our mutual understanding of the importance of strong partnership and the adage that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, find a partner and a team to go with. The work of education is a long-term investment, of course, for our students, but also for the schools and institutions and the vast architecture that sustains them. I can say with confidence that despite the fact that I have not traveled to Mexico, and nobody's come from Mexico up to Vancouver, British Columbia in the past 2 years or so, our partnership seems stronger now than it ever has been. Our activities over this time have helped forge new partnerships for Mexican and BC schools and institutions that was just referenced by Vero as well. And BCCIE itself has gained real traction on previously held and signed MOUs with Jalisco University Consortium, EduCafin in Guanajuato, and we have strengthened our collaboration with other Canadian partners, and of course, including the Trade Commissioner Service, which have really been a vital link for us. They, of course, are on the ground in their respective jurisdictions and provide invaluable intelligence and meaningful and productive connections to help advance our work. And just the second kind of facet I want to just talk about, and Laura referenced this, is the model itself seemed to really lend itself to get results, and that was really a two-part model for collaboration that we were engaged in. Part one, usually for us, at least my work with Vero primarily, was a panel discussion or a plenary that helped contextualize and outline the work to be undertaken. And this was also able to attract really high-level engagement participation from the academy as well as government. And the outcome here was to elevate the profile of the partnership and event and the objectives. Software for this, it was actually, again, necessary to have a very robust webinar platform. Part two was usually, and depending on the nature of the event itself, was a much broader engagement and afforded institutional level participation, whether that's faculty or international heads of departments. Again, software for this was a really robust B2B meeting platform. So those are just some two areas I just want to highlight as a testimonial. And if anybody has any follow-up questions from our level of engagement and activities undertaken with our colleagues in Mexico, happy to follow up with you on that. So I'll leave my comments there, testimonial. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin. And now next slide, please. And thank you. And please, back to you. Thank you, everybody. Thank
you, Veronica, Colin, Laura, Karen, all of our presenters today. Well, here are our contact information. We encourage you to write all our emails and our contact information and contact us at any time. So thank you for this presentation. It has been very insightful. And now I would like to open the floor for questions and discussing what we have seen today in this presentation. So, okay, we're gonna, now that we have all of our presenters in the screen, I'm gonna open the floor with some questions for all of you. Basically, Verónica, Karen, and Laura. So many higher education institutions, both Mexican and Canadian, drastically had to move to a virtual reality, conducting their everyday life in this new scenario, conducting virtual classes, everything going virtual. After almost 2 years of this new reality and the consequent natural exhaustion of virtual events, how do you foresee the future of these events? Do you think they can be maintained on the long run as a usual practice? I would like to see your views.
Maybe I can go first. I think, Pris, that we are trying to see a more hybrid, I guess, models of, engagement. At least from my Mexican colleagues, I still hear we still don't know here in Mexico. Higher education institutions are just coming back to their classes, to their classroom, and I think it's gonna, we're gonna know a little bit more once the new year comes. But I definitely see more of a hybrid spaces of collaboration. I do think that this new virtual reality offers some spaces and some activities that we can develop correctly and with great results without having to do the travel. But definitely the in-person part of it, especially for us on the research part, facilitating this research to research or individual sort of partnerships and work. I think that it's something that we still need to have that in-person relation. So I think that maybe a hybrid sort of like new normal hybrid events and programs will be the upcoming thing for developing these partnerships. But definitely with all the examples that we shared, I think that we can prove that virtual works if it's done the right way. But definitely I think that more of a hybrid environment, it's something that we're gonna see and that we're gonna try to pursue. But I would like to hear the thoughts of my other colleagues.
Thank you for your answer, Lori. Verónica, Karen, would you like to build or jump in with an answer?
I think virtual events are here to stay, and we found it's an easy way to collaborate and to connect between institutions, and it also saves a lot of money. We all love to travel, and we're eager to go back to live conference, in-presence conference, but the reality is that not everybody can travel to Canada or come to Mexico for a conference, and this is a very easy way, time consuming, as I said, and a lot of work and a lot of commitment to connect higher education institutions, to connect with the students, and the follow-up, as I said, is crucial. So I think that really is one of the key points that we need to take into consideration, that the virtuality that we're living also requires a lot of commitment to see results. Thank you. I think there's a question from Nadine.
Yes, hello. I'm so sorry. I was caught in between and we had a storm and stuff, so I missed much of the presentation and just caught the tail end. It is going to be so important that virtual, I believe, be continued and maintained for some time down the road, because when we look at vaccination rates in some of the territories in the Caribbean, I can't speak for Latin America, but I definitely know in the Caribbean, the rates are very low due to affordability of vaccination and vaccine reticence. So I really am hoping that the virtual opportunities will be very much there, And where there is a possibility for collaboration face-to-face, that may end up being more so for our students and professors who are doing exchanges. So it's less of flow back and forth for like conferences such as these. The virtual has proven just such an absolute blessing. I hope we continue on that path. But as I said, the face-to-face may well be more when partnerships are working out movement and it's fewer persons moving back and forth between territories to do the research or whatever it is that is required. So yay for virtual. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Nadim. And by the way, to answer your previous question, the presentation will be available at the Socio platform for later viewing, just for all of you who are wondering if you can see the presentation afterwards. So thank you so much. We actually have a couple of questions on our chat. So I'm going to read Heather McRae's question. She said, I really enjoyed this presentation and the examples of partnerships and initiatives, so kudos girls. I'm wondering if the future is about higher level partnerships, for example, government to government or provincial, regional, or country partnerships rather than individual university to university ones. Can you respond to this? Whoever wants to take the mic.
I honestly think that the partnership is in all levels. The agreements between institutions they're key for the development on international education and international mobility. So the agreements that they can be signed at a higher level are just a framework to focus on a region and an area where we want to be more present, but individual collaboration from institutions will continue to be one of the main points to develop these relationships. So I will say all levels are important. We work very hard with federal level and the state government to advocate on Canadian education, to find leads for you and scholarships and help them develop their international education programs. But universities in Mexico are autonomous, so they will choose with whom they want to work, and that is something very important for Canadians to know, that they're eager to find more agreements of collaboration. Thank you.
I agree with Vero. I think that, individual or university to university MOUs, and even the relationship between, professor to professor, the academic one-on-one collaboration between professors and even researchers that sometimes build up, all the way to institutional partnerships, are as important. And it's not necessarily that the government, at least here in Mexico, needs to find that way. There are, states where universities, as Vero was mentioning, they're autonomous, and some of them are really, really, experienced in building international relations and their own internationalization plans. So I think it really depends, on the region that you want to focus. Just as Canada, Mexico is really diverse, and the focus of each state government or the federal government may be, different from, the university view, or how advanced, each university is in Mexico. So I think it's very diverse, and I totally agree with Vero that all of these partnerships are equally important, and it really depends on the region and the partners, on how they are managing their internationalization efforts and where do they want to go. And basically we're here to try and help, build those relationships for either the government or universities, or even provide spaces to facilitate, one-on-one research or professor relations.
Thank you, Laura. I think the diversity applies to all regions. So yeah, that's something very important to highlight. We have another question from Nadine. Thank you so much, Nadine, for your question. Will there be a consideration to increasing the number of ELAB and other scholarships available to each institution if there is in fact savings accrued from virtual conference such as this versus the in-person conferences? Laura, Verónica?
I think the ELAB budget, it's, you know, a totally, you know, different thing. And I would have to ask, you know, directly to our international education division and our colleagues, you know, up in Ottawa, so they could give you a little bit more of, you know, information. As I mentioned, I don't know, you know, if a virtual conference will have an impact on the federal government budget. I don't know if Beto wants to add something, but I think we don't really have the answer for that.
I can just additionally say that scholarships that the state level government provide to international mobility for their students, for example, Guanajuato, they are blocked to be a physical mobility, not virtual mobility. So also, even though we work with them and trying to make the mobility, virtual mobility last year and this year, it was so complex that they decided to wait until this year. They had few virtual mobility or experience, but I don't know if ELAB will be, that's part of the challenge, to be in presence, because sometimes the budget is blocked, like to be in presence. So as Laura said, we will need to go back to our education division in Ottawa and ask this specific question about how, if they have considered to do virtual ELAB program. Thank you.
Yeah, we can certainly follow up on that, Nadine. So we're always here. You can write to us, and we can follow up on your question with that. So as we continue, there are I think Cesar Balbuena from Georgian College wants to ask a question. Cesar, please.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Actually, it was more of a comment, if I may, about when we talk about having more of these events online rather than in person, as you plan things for the future. I think it is, I mean, some of us were doing virtual meetings and follow-ups with our partners before the pandemic, but I think it is very important that we will have to continue at least some events during the year, because there's nothing, I mean, it's important all over the world, but in Latin America for sure, developing those initial relationships, you know, connecting with people and really getting to know people during even just a couple of days. You can do that. And then after that, you know, continuing online with all of the rest of the meetings and so on, to be more productive and spend less money traveling back and forth. So I agree with that. But I think that the piece of having that personal contact initially, I think is very important. Or at the very least, if we are going to organize events online, then we need to make sure that we have the right tools. Because just to give an example with this conference, right? I attended a conference with the PI before another conference where I was actually able to network, video, different windows, and people were talking, and you actually were able to develop some relationships even just virtually. But with Kaya, for example, I tried to schedule the networking sections, and there was nothing. It was just like typing, right? You cannot connect with people just by typing. And so I just think that, you know, if you're going to be doing more, and this is nothing to do with you guys, this is Kaya, right? But if you're going to be doing any events that are online, then we need to make sure that we have the right tools so that we can then, you know, either set up a one-on-one meeting and go on video and talk to somebody easily, or we can have that networking opportunity that we can just go into a room and everybody is there and we can chat and so on, because we need to have that connection with people, I think, initially. So that's just a comment. I think that you know, as we go forward, good news, Canada, you know, we don't have a restriction to travel. I think it was yesterday, we just came up without announcement, right? But so everybody's now excited to be able to start doing this international travel and so on. It's also not so much just because we like to travel. We always do. We're in this business for a reason, but I think it's very important to have those personal relationships initially to be able to then develop and work. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Cesar. You're absolutely right. It's really, I think all of us appreciate the first in-person contact. And of course, we can continue using this platform to follow up our conversations or meetings or initiatives. And of course, I think all of this experience, we all have built and evolved with experience, you know, with new platforms, adding new features and new things that we can use now that we didn't have before. So thank you so much for that. Okay, now I have another question for my esteemed colleagues here present. So yeah, so Vero, Laura, so you mentioned during the presentation that there's an appetite for teacher training, dual market intelligence, the research that you conduct locally to see what are the trends, the needs for our Canadian clients. How does the Trade Commissioner Service in Mexico identify or disseminate these opportunities among Canadian contacts to identify the best potential partners?
Gracias, Pris. So I think there is an appetite, and one of the important things that, you know, I agree with you all, and as I mentioned, I think we're gonna go into a more of a hybrid, you know, model when we're trying to network and establish, you know, our relationships. But definitely this is gonna be a you know, blended, where virtual will still be there, or at least that's, you know, my belief. I definitely think, you know, the in-person is so important, especially for Latin America. But, you know, going back to the question, I think the way how we find this is because we go and we talk with our Mexican contacts and with our Mexican counterparts, and they have, you know, this need for training. And I think that one of the things that virtual modality offers is that, you know, it's cheaper. It's not the same, you know, the same cost for, you know, a Mexican institution to send, you know, 20, 50, 100 teachers to Canada to get this training. And with the economic impact that the COVID pandemic has had, you know, on finances from, you know, public education institutions, government, etc., I think that virtual training, you know, offers a great opportunity to get, you know, the training aspect that you, or the training quality that you would get from a Canadian institution in a virtual format, you know, for, you know, a less cost, because you don't need to pay for, you know, the accommodation costs, the meals, the traveling. So, you know, I think that Jennifer from McDonald from Dalhousie also commented on the chat, and I do think that it's, you know, leveraging the advantages of online education. And online education, it's less expensive and it's more available to everyone. So I think, you know, again, it's all about the balance, and I think, you know, these opportunities, we find them out because we're always in contact with, you know, our Mexican institutions and our Mexican partners. And I do think, you know, as Karen was mentioning during her presentation, there is a need for this. And I think, you know, virtual modality offers this opportunity to get this quality training, you know, this international experience without the travel, and for, you know, a less amount of money, you know, for everything. So that's my answer.
Absolutely. It's like Jennifer herself says, it's obtaining the best of both worlds. So absolutely, you're completely right. Well, a final question, if for you, Vero or Karen, whoever wants to jump in. So let's talk about the future and new trends that have raised because of the pandemic. You talk a little bit about these hybrid modes. So what kind of programs or are attractive to Mexican students? At what levels? Is there the Canadian online offer been attractive to them during the pandemic? If you can expand a little bit on what the trends are for Mexican students currently. If you want,
hello, Priscilla. I have some internet issues, so I hope that you can hear me well. I had to turn off my camera. So we really believe that in the future, yes, there is demanding of virtual programs here in Mexico. It depends a lot. As you know, Mexico is very big with a lot of states in the country, so it's different in each part. So for example, here in the north of Mexico, the engineering programs are the most required by the students in this part of the country. They do accept the virtual programs, but definitely they prefer to be presently in Canada to have their programs and have this Canadian experience. So I will let my colleagues, I didn't hear very well the question, so I'll let my colleagues Laura and Vero.
So if I can just add to Karen's comment, we have seen less interest, especially in the K-12 sector, less interest on the virtuality. All kids rather be in Canada, so it has been very hard for that virtual programs be promoted in this sector. But the schools are very interested in international education, like more programs that the students have access, like a pen pal type of program, or sharing experiences virtually with the same level of group. But the reality is that the student rather to be in Canada, especially in the K-12 sector. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you so much. There was a small interruption, so apologies for that. But thank you for your answer, and thank you, Karen, also. And I have a final question because we have a lot of our Canadian clients here present today. So what can Canadian institutions do to encourage, or what, because you have the experience, what do you think, based on your knowledge of the market, what can an institution do to encourage more students and faculty mobility from and to Mexico?
I think that it's just to know each other. You know, I think that there are great and amazing Mexican institutions. You know, there's a diversity of programs, institutions. We have, you know, the bilingual public institutions, you know, the college system, private institutions that, you know, as Vero was saying, it really depends on the state, that just as in Canada, right? I mean, you have a very big diversity of institutions, diversity of places, very interesting culture, bilingualism. There's so many sectors that, you know, you can collaborate at. And I think, you know, this reflects also on not, you know, the academic and then the people-to-people relation that we have between Canada and Mexico. And we are always trying, you know, to encourage Canadian students and Canadian professors to come to Mexico. And, you know, we're here to help you find a right partner for you, for your students. And I always believe that, you know, people-to-people relations are very important. And I really can't wait until we have, you know, again, in-person mobility and at least short-term programs. So there's a lot of ways to work with Mexican institutions. They are always eager to work with Canadian partners. So I think that, you know, there's a big diversity, and we're here to help to find a right partner for you guys. And I will leave it to Vero so she can add something else.
Thank you, Laura. I agree with all that you're suggesting. I think the Mexican institutions are ready to partner. They're finding new ways to open more opportunities to collaborate, not only the mobility and presence, but also the international online collaboration programs. And Canadians now are also looking for partners in this type of collaboration, which is kind of surprising, because from the first event that BCCIE and I organized in September 2020, 1 year later, there's a huge difference on the Canadian institutions, more open to find partners, to collaborate, to go to the faculty members and find the right professor who want to partner in Mexico. At the beginning, the international offices in Canada were like, no, that's too complicated. It's a lot of work for the faculty members. And surprisingly, faculty members are ready to do it. Not all of them. I mean, they have a lot of work always, but they're more open to partner with Mexican institutions and with all Latin American institutions. It's an experience they want to give to the students. So I think this is a beautiful way to support international education and to provide those global skills that the students need for the future. So just wanted to add that and just continue to pursue these type of programs. And of course, the experience in presence will never be substitute for us as administrators, but also for the students. So that experience will continue, and we're supporting your efforts working with local governments and federal government and universities and get them ready, helping them to get ready to send back the students to Canada. And I hope next summer and next term, winter term in January, you will be seeing more Mexican students there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much again to my colleagues for that very insightful, clear presentation, and for Colin's testimony as well. So we're now at the end of our session, time flies. So I just want to say that it's very important to continue recognizing the support that us as Trade Commissioner Service can provide to our Canadian clients. We have seen here that through the resilience, patience, and hard work, the officers work very diligently to understand the new needs in the sector to serve Canadian clients by identifying and facilitating opportunities. These are solid proof of how the Trade Commissioner Service is willing to step up its game when it comes to find innovative solutions to continue supporting Canadian education institutions. We've seen how the role of the TCS service has become crucial to enable new spaces of virtual dialogue to facilitate connections with Canadian and Mexican institutions with concrete results. But also we've seen how Canadian higher education institutions and associations with leadership have also been able to rapidly adapt to this new reality and context to offer new solutions, programs, flexibility, to build new partnership with local stakeholders. Well, as highlighted in the presentation, in the time of crisis, international collaboration is very important. The presence and continued engagement are key to maintain the current education partnerships and further bilateral relations. The TCS service will continue using these new available tools and platforms when needed, or applying hybrid modes in our activities, always in benefit of our Canadian clients. We invite you to continue contacting the Trade Commissioner Service to the TCS website, to the emails that we shared, or visiting the EduCanada virtual stand present at the conference. Remember that the TCS service helps Canadian business to grow with confidence by connecting them with international opportunities worldwide. Thank you very much again for your attention today, and have a nice day.
Thank you.